Ayanda Mgadi is the chairperson of the Manufacturing Circle. She joins me now for more. Ayanda, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
So you're a leader in a sector that holds about 11% of jobs in this country, the contribution from the manufacturing sector, about 13% to GDP. So you can appreciate how policy uncertainty and incoherence, as some have put it, can lead to this industry shrinking or not expanding.
Yes, it's an area of great concern for the manufacturing circle. I suppose we continue to yearn for the days of the late 80s into 1994 when the GDP was sitting at 24%. The contribution to the GDP was sitting at 24%, and sitting at 13% is uncomfortable because what it means is that demand is diminished to such an extent that capacity is being highly underutilized in factories and organizations that are manufacturing. Jobs are being lost because people don't really have disposable income. And then it, in a way, forms this vicious cycle where demand again gets affected. And it's an area of concern that we have taken a conscious decision to be strategic partners with government and other key stakeholders, where we almost abandon a strategy where we stand on the other side of the fence and point fingers, but move around the table of discourse and say, what can we do as key players in this sector to change the tide? Because I believe that an aspiration of a higher contribution to the GDP is not just limited to the aspirations of the manufacturing circle. I'm certain that government aspires for the same thing. I'm certain that the people of this country aspire for the same thing.
Having said that, though, you know, there seems to be something persistent and chronic about the cause of policy certainty in the country. After all, you do have an election here this year, so I don't think you're betting too much on the fact that that would change anytime soon.
You know what? I think I'm highly encouraged by the experience that we have had, not just the manufacturing circle, I think up to about 22 sectors that we have had, particularly in the past 9 months, where we have had very constructive engagement with government particularly. And we've come together, I think in the period leading up to the Job Summit, we had quite a number of discussions. And where we are now, I think we are much better off. And I think there is almost a humility of pursuing the same vision and wanting that to succeed regardless of whether we are approaching an election or not. I think it is a crisis to be where we are, and the humility of realizing that we are all in a crisis, it doesn't matter which side of the fence you fall, makes us want to work together. And so some of the outcomes of the summit that we had today are not only encouraging, but what's beautiful about them is that we as sectors have taken our long-term plans, have almost compressed them to a 5-year period and asked ourselves the question, what are those catalytic projects that we would want to hold ourselves accountable to? And what are the enablers that government holds on to assist us to achieve that? But at the same time, what are the inhibitors? So it's no longer really a throwing match. It's basically us sitting there saying, where's the solution? How do we find it together?
At what point do we see all of these investment pledges coming from business leaders materializing into jobs? I mean, you're sitting down, you're talking about those barriers, and those policy uncertainties stretch from labor uncertainties, security of assets. You have the power situation in this country where we could be, investors would ask for a more certain, more secure landscape. At what point do you marry all of those and start showing jobs? Because we had billions of rands in investment last year. Many people who are unemployed out there would say, well, when's that going to translate into jobs?
Results coming. Well, you're right in a way in putting that kind of pressure, and we must want to put that kind of pressure on ourselves. And that is why the catalytic projects that we are pursuing are stratified according to what is immediate, what is short-term, and what is long-term. I'll make an example. The Vaal Triangle Rejuvenation Project, which is a project that a number of our members in the manufacturing circle, like Nampak, ArcelorMittal, Sasol, etc., are working together to solve a specific problem. And the problem with the Vaal is that, whilst the unemployment levels in the country are sitting at about 27%, in that area you find that they are way above the national average. They're even more than 50%. So you almost must hold yourself to a specific point. We can't afford to make blanket statements and blanket aspirations. We must be specific.
And then
so I
measure
agree with
around
you.
those areas.
And keep ourselves accountable. That's the only way to do it.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Ayanda, thanks very much indeed for coming in. Ayanda Mgadi, chairperson of the Manufacturing Circle.